everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escoffier Online, and welcome to our live session this morning. Today we're going to be making Goldschlager Truffles, and just a little bit about Goldschlager. It is a cinnamon schnapps, and this is a product of Germany, and you'll find this in the liquor stores, some specialty liquor stores, pretty common to find. You can also buy it online, and they have this smaller bottle and then one size larger as well. So what's really unique about Goldschlager, and this is why I chose this for this time of year, cinnamon schnapps, it just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy when you drink it, and it's cinnamon just to me is like a holiday flavor. And what's really neat is there are gold flecks in this Goldschlager. So if you see, I mix it up a little bit, you can see these gold flecks, and these are probably like 24 karat gold, so it'll be worth more after you eat your Goldschlager truffles. So just makes this really unique, and the Goldschlager itself is a nice gift for the holiday season, and maybe a nice Goldschlager with a box of Goldschlager truffles. You really can't go wrong. So we know a little bit about the Goldschlager now. So let's talk about the truffles. This is so easy to make. A few ingredients. We just have cream, we have dark chocolate, we're going to have the Goldschlager, and that's it. You have a really nice truffle. So what's nice about ganache is it's so versatile in the pastry kitchen, and what you'll do in your weekly production is you'll start your ganache in the beginning of the week with your custards and maybe your cakes and some of your other bases like your tart shells or your tart dough, then your tart shells, and your pâte choux. And as the week goes on that you're preparing for your weekend business, you will be finishing all of your products with things like ganache and pastry cream. So for your ganache, it's great for scooping for truffles. When it's in its liquid state, you can pour it into tart shells and flavor it, and you can pour it over cakes. And when it's semi-solid at room temperature, you can ice cakes, you can ice things like brownies, you can pipe it onto cookies, fill cookies. So the ganache is incredibly versatile, super important thing in the pastry kitchen. So knowing all of that, we're going to make a little batch of ganache, and then we're going to make some truffles with it. So I chose to make a ganache with just chocolate and heavy cream. So I've got some heavy cream here on the stove, and I'm just going to bring it to a simmer. Don't let it get too crazy. You could scorch the bottom of your pot. And keep your heat kind of like on medium low. So you're going to have your chocolate chopped up, and I'm using dark chocolate. So when you have a ganache recipe and it calls for dark chocolate, you can't go ahead and substitute white chocolate or milk chocolate. These chocolates are so much different. There's sugars added, there's milk solids, and this is going to make your ganache a lot softer. So there are specific recipes for white chocolate ganache and milk chocolate ganache, and stick with those. And if you're going to play around a little bit, keep in mind you're going to have to use more of those chocolates and less cream because it's going to be a softer ganache. So just make a note that these chocolates are not interchangeable in ganache recipes. You're going to have to make some variations. So knowing that, we're going to go ahead and add our cream here in just a minute, starting to simmer. Super easy thing to make. Some ganaches you'll see they have butter in them, and some will even have corn syrup. Just a variation in the recipe. The corn syrup will add some shine, and it'll help your ganache be more fluid-like. And the butter is going to add some softness and some shine too, and a little bit different flavor. So really it's whatever you like. I like to stick with a basic ganache with just cream and chocolate. So I'm pouring my cream over my chocolate. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this sit. It's hard not to start stirring it, but you're going to want to leave this sit for a minute. You can kind of shake it up a little bit and let that cream start to melt your chocolate. So it's going to start working on the chocolate. If you start mixing this, you're going to cool it right away. So, just be patient, just a minute or two. If you're making maybe a rather large bowl, you're going to want to leave it sit just a little bit longer. I can already see my chocolate is starting to melt. So if by chance you ever have a ganache that has like some chunks of chocolate in it that you can't melt, you can go ahead and put that over a double boiler, bain-marie, and kind of help that chocolate melt a little bit. But this should do the trick. And over a bain-marie is another method of making the ganache. You can just put the chocolate with the cream over the double boiler or the bain-marie, and it will melt together like that. So whichever you like, this is how I like to make my ganache. And then we're going to be adding some Goldschlager to this. And with the Goldschlager, you can substitute another liqueur. You can substitute amaretto, creme de coco, Kahlua, even rum, or perhaps maybe some sambuca. And you can also substitute crème de menthe. Be mindful that crème de menthe, really strong, kind of permeates things, so you might want to cut back on that one a little bit unless you want a very strong mint flavor. Okay, so let's go ahead and mix this in. So as you can see, the chocolate is melted part way. There's just a little bit of unmelted chocolate. So the cream kind of did its trick while I was standing here talking. And we're just going to mix this in. And like I said, you can turn it over to a double boiler if you need to help that chocolate melt a little bit. So I've got some pieces in here, and they'll kind of work out on their own. And this is when we are going to add our Goldschlager. You can also add some extracts if you want. Let's shake it up and get some of those gold flecks in there. Okay, so for your truffles, if your truffles are too soft, if you want them a little firmer, you can either add a little extra chocolate or a little less liquid. And the same goes if they are a little too firm for you, you're going to add a little bit more liquid or a little bit less chocolate. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to add some Goldschlagers and give this a real nice flavor. And if you wanted to eliminate the Goldschlager and the liqueur altogether, you would just add a little bit more cream. Or if you wanted a firmer truffle, that'll work out just fine. So it really depends too on maybe how warm your kitchen is. And if you're working in a hot environment and things are warming up when you're working on them, you're going to want to start with something that's a little bit thicker. It's not going to get too soft on you. Okay, so this is our basic ganache. What we're going to do is we're going to chill this, and then we're going to scoop this. So I have some ganache that I made earlier, so let's go ahead and do some scooping. Okay, so I like to scoop my truffles. Some chefs like to pipe their truffles. It's really whatever you like. It's a preference. But I am a truffle scooper. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, this is the ganache. It's nice and firm. It's been in the refrigerator overnight. So we're just going to scoop this. And this scoop in particular, I like to make this one pretty level. And then what I do is I put these on trays. Okay. So this truffle is just a little bit firmer, this ganache. And if you're having trouble with melting, definitely stick with something a little bit firmer. If you like a truffle that's not quite so firm, be careful that you're not making it too soft because it is going to be a little hard to work with. Okay, so I've just got a couple of truffles scooped here. Okay. So next, I like to wear gloves when I'm working on these, and you can wash your hands and work on them without gloves if you want. But Chef Susie is not a fan of getting her hands dirty for a pastry shop for some reason, I don't know. Okay, so after you scoop your truffles, they're not exactly round. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to roll these. Okay, they don't have to be so perfect. I mean, you want to be consistent. You want to have a consistent product. Try to get them the same size. But at some point, if it's not a perfect round ball, you're just going to have to stop rolling it and just leave it alone because it's kind of hard. But just, you know, work on it, get it the best that you can. Okay, so it's a little warm in here. These are getting a little sticky, so keep that in mind when you're determining the firmness of your truffle. Okay, so what I do next is I put these in the refrigerator and then I dip them or I roll them in chocolate. So I've got some in the refrigerator that we're going to be pulling out, and then we're just going to be rolling them in the chocolate, and then we'll finish them off. Okay, so I've got some chocolate that I tempered earlier. I was keeping it warm. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I've got some nicely chilled truffles here. You can see that these are, you know, they're a little bit more matte. You can kind of see the coldness, and they're not quite as shiny as the ones that I was working on that were kind of melting a little bit. So kind of firm these up in the fridge depending on, you know, your climate and the room temperature that you're working in. Usually if you put them in the fridge for about a half hour, that's fine. The problem is if you start out with these too warm, you're going to have some melting when you're dipping them in chocolate. So I've got some truffles that I finished earlier with some gold, which I'm going to be showing you how to use. So let's go ahead first, and we're going to dip a couple of these in the chocolate, and then we're going to roll a few too. Just kind of want to get you comfortable with either dipping or rolling, whichever you like. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to kind of move this over a little bit like this. We'll put our bowl right next here so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to dip the truffles first, and then I'll show you how to roll them by hand, whichever way you like. It's just really a personal preference. I would try both and kind of see what's most comfortable for you. So for dipping, you can buy a dipping set, or you can just use 2 forks from your kitchen like I'm going to be using. So I'm putting the truffle in, kind of submerging it, and then I'm just pulling it out with my fork. And I'm just kind of tapping off the excess. And then what I do is I slide it off with my other fork. See, it's super easy. You just need 2 forks from your kitchen. Like I said, you can get a dipping set. Those are real nice. I actually have one somewhere, but I just always go for my forks because they're always around. So what you're going to want to do too is if these forks start to get a little dirty, make sure that you wash them or have, you know, 2 more on hand to change them out. Okay, you can use the same technique when you're dipping petit fours in fondant. So super easy. And if if you happen to get a few feet on the bottom of your truffle, those are those little kind of, things that when the chocolate kind of spreads out on the tray, you can take a small sharp paring knife and just trim those off. So, don't worry, just practice on your truffles and you'll feel more comfortable with them. And anything that happens, you can always fix with a paring knife. Trust me. Okay, so that's a super easy way to dip your truffles. So let's go ahead and roll a few truffles. And this is my preferred way of making truffles. So what you're going to do is can put the truffle in the chocolate, take it out. I like to start with the truffle in my hand, and then I just put a little chocolate. And not too much because you can get that footing, and then, just watch for it to be covered, and then drop it on the tray. And I like to do kind of a little swirl on top. We're going to be covering these anyway, but that's kind of how I finish mine off. Okay. And every now and then you're going to want to scrape down the sides of your bowl. I see I'm getting a little messy here. No worries. Okay. Super easy. So please be in touch with me and let me know if you're a truffle roller or a truffle dipper. I would really like to know. I find that interesting. So if you got some spots on there that aren't covered, you can always just kind of, take your finger a little bit. This one I kind of messed it up a little bit, but there we go. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and clean off our bowl a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and make our truffles a little more valuable. We're going to be putting a little bit of gold on them. I was able to order some gold, some sheets of gold. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh, we're going to want to keep this close by. Okay. All right, let's clean up here a little bit. Chocolate has a tendency to just kind of jump out at you. If you get it on the side or something, then all of a sudden it's on your shirt. Okay, so let's talk about edible gold next, because this is a super easy, fun, elegant, impressive way to finish off your Goldschlager truffles. So I've got some truffles that I put a little bit of gold on them earlier, and this is just a 14 karat gold that I bought, and this is a product of Italy, I believe, and you can order these online. These are just some sheets in here. You can buy gold in the form of luster dust, and you can brush it on the truffle after the chocolate has set. That's a pretty way to finish it. And you can also buy the gold leaf in kind of flecks, and you can shake them on. What I did is I bought some sheets. I typically buy the sheets because they're versatile. I kind of just like to tear little random pieces off, and then I'll have the sheet if I need a bigger piece too. But anything will work, whatever you're comfortable with. And this is edible gold. Make sure, because there's gold out there that is for crafting, make sure that you're buying edible gold if you're going to be using it from a food purveyor. And if you need any help locating this, or if you have any questions, just let me know. I can help you out. And it's fun to work with. And the sheets are nice too, because you can use those for fondant cakes. So I always kind of stick with the sheets, but really it's whatever you like and what you feel comfortable with. Okay, so the big thing with the gold is handling the gold. Okay, so you're going to want to be sure that there's not a fan on, or you're not close to one of these doors that you open and the air comes rushing in, because it's going to blow and be gone on you. Trust me, it's so delicate and it's so light, and it's a little hard to work with, but you know, after you do it a couple of times, you're going to feel more comfortable. So let's go ahead and pull one of these sheets out of here. Okay, let me put my glasses on for this one. Make sure that I get the right sheet. Okay, so I got one that got a little bit messed up. I don't know if that happened in transit or if that happened from me. Okay, so these are on little pieces of parchment here. So what we're going to want to do is we are going to pull the gold out. Okay. So this is what the sheet looks like. Okay, so don't touch the gold with your hands, because this is going to stick. Very staticky product too. Going to stick and melt if you touch it with your hands. You can use a glove, but what I recommend doing is just using like a little knife or little tweezers and some little paint brushes. So we got a little piece here. Okay, so I've just got these natural bristle brushes that I'm going to be using. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tear a piece of gold, and then we're just going to put it right on top of the truffle. So if the truffles are set, you can just take a little stick or knife or little spoon and then put a little chocolate on top to stick the gold on. So let's go ahead and we're going to kind of wet the top of our truffle again. This is like pretty fun to work with. I just have a regular pair of tweezers from like Walgreens, but what's really nice too, if you buy a set of bamboo tweezers or there's anti-static tweezers. That's going to help with this gold if you kind of are really getting involved with it. Those are some things you might want to buy, but you can kind of work with what you have around the house. You can cut the gold with one of these little exacto knives or a paring knife, and then kind of just use that to carry it over to the truffle and put it on, and use your brush too. But I just found that using a little pair of tweezers works just fine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tear off a little piece of our gold. Like I said, don't touch it. I mean, you can touch it, but it's going to stick to your finger. So let's go ahead and tear a little piece. I mean, it's even staticky with the way that I'm doing it, but it's kind of fun to work with, huh? What do you think? And I just like to, you know, put like a little kind of random piece on there. I always go bigger rather than smaller when I'm tearing these because, oh, now we're getting a little bit of static, but that's okay. Like I said, I like to go a little bit bigger rather than smaller when I'm tearing because it kind of melts on here a little bit. All right, so I'm getting a little bit of sticking here, but that's okay. I got a nice piece on here. Okay, and please let me know if you have any questions. And it just really finishes this off and makes it really holiday-like. And I'm not hearing anything. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I'm kind of, you know, getting it not too messy. Just kind of take your time. So you're gonna want to do is make sure that you're staying away from like any air source, any fan, because that is really gonna affect this. Oh, got a little piece on there. Go ahead and put another one on. I like to sometimes stand these up too. And we'll go ahead and we'll finish off a couple more. I like these nice smooth truffles. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so we're going to be just tearing a couple pieces and putting them on. And once it gets a little warm on there, it kind of almost like shrivels up and gets a little stuck. So, oh, you got a little breeze here. You can see that. See how delicate it is? I mean, just from my movement, I've got a little bit of breeze here. Okay, so, you know, it's easy to work with. It's delicate, but as you can see, you know, I'm not having a hard time here with my tweezers and my paintbrush. And I have some really pretty finished truffles with some nice gold on them. So let's go ahead and plate this up a little bit. What we're gonna wanna do is move our gold out of the way. Okay, so when you're handling chocolates, you should always wear some gloves. Otherwise, you're gonna get some fingerprints on these. So we're just going to be putting the truffles that I made earlier that are nice and set up on this little stand that we have. And then we're going to be saying our goodbyes. So please let me know if you have any questions. Let me know how you're doing with the Goldschlager truffles. They are really beautiful and they're fun to make, and your friends and family will be impressed with your skills when you start putting some gold on these truffles. So you can also give them as a gift with a nice bottle of Goldschlager as well. So what we're going to do is maybe put a little bit of mint on here, nice little piece of mint, and maybe how about some rose petals too. Makes a nice little display. We'll go with the pink ones. And we have a question. the question is can you use a silpat to lay the truffles on? You can. I just use some parchment, and silpat works great as well. So we've got some truffles, we've got some pink rose petals, a little bit of mint, a little bit of gold on here, and we are all ready for the holiday. And thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.